Ireland is a small and cute country on the edge of Europe. But don't get fooled by that, because size doesn't matter. Every woman knows that. Right, girls? Right? Please say, Alvin, you are correct. Ireland might be tiny, but it has a very rich culture of myths, fables, and stories. So come with me as I, Alvin, the Lord Keeper VTuber, takes you to a journey across the Emerald Island with some myths and stories. Going to Ireland. That makes me wonder, how did people reach this place? You see, it is said that Ireland was populated not in one full swoop, but in several waves. 6 to be exact. And today we're gonna look into that as it is stated in Book of Invasions. Our story starts from Egypt, where a man is given a divine warning that a great flood will engulf all of earth and kill all of creation, as the corruption has become too widespread. He also got a divine mandate to build a giant ark, colossal vessel, where he was asked to bring a pair of all existing living beings, along with some faithful who will later repopulate the new world. New world? God damn it, we are not talking about you, America. But that was not the only vessel that was prepared for this flood. Noah had a granddaughter named Cessair who was denied a place on the ark. So being the boss little lady, she decided to build her own ships to save her people. Cessair decides to go on an uninhabited island on the edge of Europe called Ireland. Why Ireland specifically, you might wonder. Well, since God was bringing in the flood because of humanity's sins, Cessair argued since the island was uninhabited, it must also be untainted from the corruption of humanity, but it would all end in vain. 3 ships left for Ireland, only 2 reached it, and even after that there was only 1 survivor. Everyone else died because of plague and the incoming flood. And thus ended the first attempts to settle on the island. For the next 300 years, the Emerald Island would stay uninhabited until the arrival of Partholon, a Greek prince said to be fleeing from his homeland with his family and followers after losing a power struggle over his kingdom. He sets up his kingdom on the island, fights a battle against monstrous beings called Fovorian, spraying forth lakes from the ground. You know, typical prince behavior. All in all, it was looking good for Partholon until it wasn't. And he, along with all of his subjects, get wiped out by a mysterious plague within a week. Negative order, as the kids would say. And so the Emerald Island would again be devoid of any life. Except Fovorians, because of course they don't count. The third wave of invasions of settlers would happen when Nemedians and the Nemeth would arrive 30 years after wiping out of Partholon and his people. They would sail out in an armada of 44 ships, but all except the ship of Nemeth would capsize when they would come across a floating golden tower. I can't blame them. I'm at that point of life where I would pick a penny off the ground. Like and subscribe, help a brother out, please. Nemedians' existence would be characterized by their struggle against Fovorians. At this point, you might be wondering, wait, so Fovorians already existed in Ireland, so it wasn't uninhabited? To that, my reply is,
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
don't think about it. There's a reason why these stories doesn't make sense, and that reason is... Anyways, where were we? Yes, Nemeth and his people would be locked into an endless struggles against Fovorians. He would go on to win 4 battles against them, but would lose his life in a plague 9 years after arriving. Without their king, the rest of Nemedians would be enslaved by the mysterious Fovorian and forced to pay some very, very extreme tribute. Every Samhain, they would be forced to provide their entire supply of milk and grain and 2/3 of their children. But Fovorians did not know that taxation without representation is theft. If only they learned history. Sir, what is it, familiar? These events are supposed to happen years before the American Revolution. Oh. Anyways, Fovorians would ultimately crush the rebellion, killing almost all of the Nemedians. A lucky few would be able to make escape. Some would go to northern unknown places. Some would end up in either Iberia or Greece, where they would be enslaved again. Yikes! Imagine revolting to be free and end up getting enslaved again. Must be sucky. And sucky it was. So after a couple of centuries, the survivors would say fuck it and went back to invade Ireland in the... I know it's hard to keep track of these invasions. I got you. These group of people were called Perbolg because, fun fact, when they were enslaved by Greeks, they were forced to carry bags of soil or clay, hence the name Men of Bags or Perbolg. Thinking again, I don't think it was a fun fact. Well, coming back to the story, Perbolg would conquer the islands from Favorians and proceed to split the island into 5 small kingdoms and would rule over the island for the next 37 glorious years. But everything would change when the Fire Nation attacked. So guys, do you remember when I told you some would go to northern unknown places? Some would end up in either Iberia or Greece, where they would be enslaved again. The Numidians who went north came back to reclaim their ancestors' land, just like the Firbolg in the Toward the day the Nan rolled onto Ireland to claim what was there and what was stolen from them. They are described as a supernatural race, much like idealized humans, who are immune from aging and sickness and who have power of magic. They are said to be evil sorcerers or heathens, but definitely not gods, because there is just one god. Toward the day the Nan are attributed to have control over weather and the elements and the ability to shape-shift themselves and other things. But they are definitely not gods, because there is just one god. They came to Ireland riding storm clouds, which darkened the skies and hid the sun for 3 days and 3 nights straight. They immediately burnt all ships of Firbolg, but repeat with me kids, they were definitely not gods. They would fight the Firbolg in an epic battle lasting over 4 days, where the Tuatha the Nan decisively defeated their southern brethren. During the battle, the king of definitely not gods, but heretic evil sorcerers, Nada, is challenged by the champion of the Firbolg, the mighty Sring, to single combat. A duel to the death. The battle is fierce, with metal clashing against metal, so blood spraying everywhere. And when the dust settled, it was Nauda who was the last one standing. But the victory came at a huge cost for the king. Sring might have died, but he also took something very important from him, one of his arm. And this was an issue. Tuatha the Nan, despite being godlike, cannot accept a man who was not unblemished, was not perfect. And thus, Nauda had to step down as he was replaced by Bray as the new king. Which is kinda odd, cause Bray was half Favorian. Hey, kudos to them, they hated people with disabilities, but at least they were not racist. Master? Yes, familiar? Too soon, Master. Too soon. Oh. Well, let's go back to the story. Well, this brave fella, he was kind of a prick and a tyrant. And the worst of it all, he favored his Favorian kins over the Tuatha De Danann people. He basically made them slaves to Favorians. While the people were getting tired of this tyranny, Nauda was on a quest to make him whole again. With the help of the physician Dienketh, he got himself a silver arm to replace the missing one and came back to reclaim his throne. Bray was overthrown and then they lived happily ever after. If only it went like that. Bray went to his Favorian kins to ask for help, and Balor the Formidable, a one-eyed, fiery fuzzball of destruction, a dude so villainous that he tried to kill his own grandson, agreed to help him. What's up with these myths where babies get these massive responsibilities of killing their shitty fathers, grandfathers, uncles, bro? What if these divine kids just want to be doctor like every other South Asian kid? Anyway, I get too distracted. My lord, you should get checked for ADHD. You might be right, familiar. Bray, now emboldened by the support of Balor, the one-eyed fiery ball of cuteness, Master wages war on the Nauda and other Tuatha. The war was a brutal one, and Tuatha De Danann were having a terrible time against Balor, the red cuteness, Master. And it seems as if their fate was sealed. But things would take an unexpected turn with a knock on the doorstep of King Nuada's court. A blonde-haired, fair-skinned warrior has came looking to join the Tuatha De Danann and offer King Nuada his services. But the doorman, being the professional, can't let anyone just roll into the court. You know, gotta protect the elites from the rest of 99%. So he asks Liu what skills he has, tells him that he won't be allowed to enter the court unless he has a useful skill that can be used in service of the king. And oh boy, oh did Liu had some skills. He offered his services as a writer, a smith, a swordsman, a harpist, a hero, a poet, a historian, a sorcerer, and a craftsman. But the doorman was not just any doorman. He was the professional recruiter who had broken countless dreams of thousands of graduates looking for the job. Master! Every time Liu mentions a skill, guardsman tells him that they already have someone who can do that job. But Liu was not any ordinary demigod either. He has been preparing for this exact moment his entire life. He replies, well, you are correct that Tuta de Danan are very blessed and skilled folk. And Lord Nauda, by the virtue of being our king, will have all sort of talented people as part of his court. But tell me, oh doorman, do you have anyone who can do all of those things? Hearing this, the doorman admitted his defeat, and thus Liu was able to join the court. But here is the thing, Liu was just not any other Tuatha De Danann. He was the grandson. Balor was prophesied would be his doom, and soon he would get the chance to fulfill the prophecy. The two sides would soon meet each other for a final battle at Mark Turide. This is where Balor and Nauda would come face to face for one final showdown. A fight so epic and intense it felt as if wind, river, ocean, or even time itself were holding their breath. The battle would come to a close with Balor killing the king. But before he could savor the victory, Liu jumps in the ring and another epic battle ensues. Grandfather versus grandsons. Audience were on the verge of victory when suddenly it all falls silent. Liu has slain Balor of the Evil Eye with his slingshot, smashing his deadly eye through the back of his head and securing the victory for Tuatha De Danann. And for the next 150 years, Tuatha De Danann live on the island in relatively peace, which ends when their reign is finally challenged by the sixth wave of invaders, the Irish. The invasion of Irish people was checked at every step by Tuatha De Danann, despite the Irish attempt at diplomacy and coexistence. Which, by the way guys, are definitely not gods, just some evil heretic sorcerers. You can pick any of those titles, but not gods. During their invasion, they would meet the three land goddesses Banba, Ordla, and Idiu, one after the another. Each of the goddesses would ask the Irish to name the island after them in return for their blessing. And the ever crafty Irish would say yes to all of them. It's kinda crazy that when Irish say yes to three women at the same time, they are called crafty. And when I do it, I'm called a cheat. Master! Sidetrack. My bad, familiar. Getting sidetracked was not the issue there, Master. After the back and forth of invasions, the two sides finally decided to meet at the capital of Tuatha De Danann, Tara. At that time, the Emerald Island was ruled by three kings who would defend their claims to the kingship of the island but would offer a 3-day truce to the Irish while the negotiations were taking place. They only had one itty-bitty tiny request. They asked that during the truce period, the Irish must stay at 9 wave distance away from the island. And surprisingly, the Irish agreed. But no sooner has they parked their boats at the designated spot, the Tuatha De Danann would conjure a massive storm to make sure that Irish would never get back to the island. Irish, at the end of their wits, would turn to their resident druid Amergin to devise a solution. Amergin would decide to cut the Tuatha De Danann out of the equation by directly making a plea to the island itself. And poof, the storm would dissipate as if the island itself was welcoming them. Seeing the miracle, the Tuatha De Danann would agree to share the land with the Irish, giving them overworld while they would retreat to the underworld or the otherworld. And thus would conclude the invasion of Ireland and people would live happily ever after. Master? Oh, no. Before I wanna end the video, I wanna add something. A lot have been said about how Christianity has tainted the original story of settlement of Ireland, as the pagan Irish never left a written account, and the first written record were from the Christian monks who would heavily Christianize the whole account, as we can see from the insertion of different biblical characters or trope. Now I agree that it would have been amazing if the pre-Christian theology had survived till today, but let's be real, it does not work that way ever. Whenever an old set of beliefs have been replaced by new ones, the newcomers have to make a very hard decision. Do they want to save the culture of their predecessor by looking it through the new perspective, ideas, and faith, or let it wither away? It happened with the expansion of Christianity. It happened with the Islam, Buddhism, and even Hinduism. We should definitely criticize such practices, but we should make sure that we are not too harsh on the people. In this case, the early Christian monks, for what they did to preserve their cultural roots as best as they could. Lastly, I want to credit overly sarcastic productions and their video on Book of Invasions. Check them out. Those guys are awesome. This was Alvin. Thank you guys for coming to the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Grim. Would be in the description. Thank you guys. See you guys in another video.